3, 2, and 1. Hey, we are here in Moda, Dan.
Hey, yeah, we are.
Do you know what Moda stands for?
No, I need the microphone, Trey. No, I don't, Trey. Why don't you tell me?
It stands for the Museum of Design in Atlanta, and we are here live broadcasting from the Museum of Design, and it is the biggest part, in my opinion, when it comes to GD14. It's when we gather on a Wednesday night to talk about what is actually happening in our minds and brains as we're going through Fuse. And particularly, there's an exhibit here that is happening that is absolutely unbelievable. It's designed for social impact, and I think that has a lot to do with schools. I mean, gosh, we would love to see our students to design for social impact. So I'm going to bring up real quick Bo Adams. Bo Adams is the kind of the leader of our team that's been leading us for about 6.5 months, our design team, on how this works. And also, we're going to be bringing up Laura Luce, right? Luce, come on. The director of the Museum of Design. So I'm going to switch the camera over here. We're going to give a round of applause. And we just love for you guys to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Moda.
Sure.
Oh yeah, you're good. You got a microphone.
So, as you know, I'm Bo Adams. I'm on the board at Moda, and I'm so thrilled that we became Moda's inaugural design education partner this year. Katie Sims, back over this way, out of the way of the camera, has been a point person for us, as has Claire Timmerman and Laura, for work that our students have been doing on a pop-up exhibit about design thinking that is opening next door in July. And it has just been a great way to form a relationship with Moda. And I believe so deeply in what Moda is doing, and felt very privileged to be asked to be on board. And it's an incredible learning experience for me. And I feel like I get to give back to the Atlanta design community and well beyond the design community. I want to steal Laura's thunder about what it is Moda sees design being and doing.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm curious how many people are from Atlanta. Okay.
The back row.
That's how we are in Atlanta. We'll lie.
Not so much in New England.
I'm curious, if you're not from Atlanta, how many of you have a design museum in your city? Design museums are few and far between, and I feel very lucky that we have one in Atlanta. And I don't want to tell you everything tonight because I'm going to talk to you again in the morning, though you've had a couple glasses of wine maybe, and you might not remember. But in any case, I don't want to steal all my own thunder, but I do want to tell you a few things about the museum. First of all, thank you to Mount Vernon for coming on board as an educational partner. Education is a big part of our mission, and while we do more informal education than a school does, we think that we have something of value to offer, and we are grateful to Mount Vernon for believing in us and partnering with us as we try to improve what we're doing in the community. Moda is a museum that was founded 25 years ago, and I think it was founded by accident. I'm not sure about that, but from what I can figure out, it seems like it was. A group of people who were instrumental in bringing the Olympics to Atlanta got together and realized that there was an increasingly international population in the city, and that nobody was talking about the culture that was coming into the city as a result, or the cultures, I should say. And so they began to put up exhibitions and called themselves the Atlanta International Museum of Art and Design. And they did that for a while before they sat down and really looked at what had been successful and said, design is where it's at. And they changed our name and they changed our mission so that we became the Museum of Design Atlanta. We, for a very long time, didn't have a permanent home. But 3 years ago, we had the opportunity to move to this great location right across from the High Museum. And we love it. We love being in the Midtown Arts Corridor. If you're not from Atlanta and you have a chance to explore this area, that's great. How are we different from what's across the street? The High is, of course, an encyclopedic museum of art. It's big, and it has a permanent collection. We're none of those things. We don't have a permanent collection. We're small. and we're not really encyclopedic. We put up exhibitions, they change every 3 or 4 months, and we do programming that revolves around those exhibitions. More and more, we are trying to become what we might call here a human-centered museum. In other words, we want to be less about what's on the walls, and we want to be less about what we're telling you to think, and we want to be more about people coming here, having experiences, and participating in what's going on. I don't tell everyone this, and never mind, we're on the internet. But we have a staff meeting saying we're not high. So while we love what the high does, we think their offers are awesome. We're something very different. And so I welcome you to this experience. I'll tell you more tomorrow about who we are, what we're doing, and where we're going. But thank you for coming to Moda this evening.
I'm hoping that's just a saying. Or maybe I'm not. Maybe it'll be awesome. Anyway. I went down that train of thought for a minute.
And that would be what Jen Chan would say is an awkward turtle.
That's an awkward turtle. So, great. We're going to start getting some folks up who are members of the MOD team. I think everyone's a MOD that we're inviting up tonight from the DT K-12 chat to talk about their experiences at Fuse 14 so far, because we've really only had a day. So we've got a whole other day ahead of us. So this is like the halfway point. So we'll be looking on the Twitter all day tomorrow for like reflective analysis. But now we're going to call up Jen Chan. Who's going to come on up. And Amy Thorson. Cammy, where are you? There you are.
In these 2 chairs. Right here.
Oh, we're such a professional outfit. This is seriously the nicest setting. If anyone's ever seen the show.
It's usually Dan's basement that has a ton of Star Wars memorabilia behind it. That's literally what it is. For real.
Check it out. There's a Millennium Falcon back here. Just look at my
Who would have known? All right, so Jen and Kimmy, would you guys introduce yourselves for us real quick?
Sure. I'm Jen Chan. I run an organization called Exhibit Change. We do design-driven community engagement, and we come from Toronto.
I'm Cammy Ferguson. I come from Los Altos School District in California, Bay Area, where I'm the Innovative Strategist Coach.
So the big question we're asking all the guests tonight is around this idea of social change. So the big how might we is, how might we leverage design thinking in schools to impact social change? So I'd like your answer in 10 seconds or less, because it's a very.
You from all of yours now. One 10-second pronoun.
I think that's a big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for that.
So that's the big question. Okay, so if you want to start with something smaller, or tackle that one. What do you want to do?
Oh, I'll just go for it. In Los Altos, we are experimenting with a format, sort of a student educational conference model. And we did our first one last year. I call it Student EdCon. And we used the design thinking process, and we opened it up to our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And they had to apply to come, just like a regular conference. We took 70 students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. We did it right after school got out. And we had them design around the school environment, like learning. Let's rock and redesign learning is what we did. And we actually had guest speakers that came in and spoke to the kids in between, a little bit like what you guys are experiencing through Fuse. So a very similar type conference model. The kids worked in cohorts, and they had a facilitator that worked with them. And they came up with a solution or prototype for something that they wanted to see different on their campus. And we actually prototyped 2 or 3 of their ideas on their junior high campuses this last year, which is really phenomenal. We're looking at this year running that again, Student EdCon in October, and doing something more of a social change type of theme. So we're still working at those pieces, but it was amazing what kids could do, and to have that conference experience was really empowering for them. I mean, they were really, to watch them go through it was really exciting, and to watch our staff that facilitated, they got just as much out of it, if not more, than the kids did. They were amazed by what kids could do.
Can I get you to repeat your question?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
How might we leverage design thinking in schools to empower social change?
Okay. So when we started Exhibit Change 5 years ago, it actually started as a citizen engagement and city building organization. We were working fundamentally just with community and people working to, whether it was like nonprofit organizations working to start a community garden or organizations looking to run festivals in their community so people could connect. And so we very naively thought, well, it would just make sense that you would want to connect with students and get into schools because there are communities within communities. And so we have been working now for about 3 years on actually pushing that envelope of how community and school work together in those social change moments. And so we've worked with students who are designing their own parent engagement strategies, or we've worked with students who are designing around their local river. And so for all of those groups, I think what we've really found is that if everyone can sort of take a moment and stay in those, what we like to call the crunchy throne zone, and not really worry about what the solutions might be and how they can actually stay in all those, like, I have no idea what we're supposed to do, that's how we can leverage students and social change.
Did you see anything out of that that were either one of these? This is a question for both of you. Did you see any project where you were like, wow, that's not necessarily successful, just it stuck, it hit you and went, that's what we're talking about trying to make happen?
So we worked on a project in a neighborhood where they had 2 community gardens, one where the students were running it in their school and the other one was like in the community, and so we ran an event called 100 Steps Forward, where we actually had the students design stepping stones, and half the stepping stones were going to go in their garden and half of them would go in the community, and it was really this idea of like, how do we leave legacy in our community and a place to connect and something you can come back to and won't really disappear over the time. And there was one student in particular who was like in his like super slick like football jacket thing. It was like satin or something. And it literally was. And he was like with all his buddies, and all his buddies were like, come on, let's just go, let's just rush through this. And he spent so much time meticulously picking out the pieces to design this like butterfly floral mosaic thing on his stone, and he spent the full period just working on like scavenging for all these pieces. And I think it's like those moments when you can connect with a student who doesn't look like they would connect with that, and then they do in a way that you just give them the time to be in that moment.
That's really cool. I thought it was interesting for you that you're like, I don't know. Oh wait, satin jackets.
Wait, it was this shiny, slick material. I couldn't remember what it was called.
Kim, did you have one you wanted to share?
Well, yeah, I guess one of the things that came out of that conference was our students really wanted what they called the democratic school. And one of their prototypes was they wanted more voice on what happened in their campus and with what decisions were made regarding what happened around them. And so it was really simple. They just wanted representation, like a staff meeting and certain discussions that were happening, and they didn't even necessarily want to be part of their decisions. They just wanted to know. They wanted to know what was happening and what was being decided for them. They wanted to get more input from their community, and they really wanted to be part of that process, and they wanted to understand it more, which was cool that they really wanted to be able to have a voice in here.
That's super cool. Hey, you two, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being put on the spot. Candy Thornton, good job, everybody.
So one of the things that I think could be interesting is, Jen, your head was like perfectly placed between both the Moda logo and MakerBot. So MakerBot, if you want to tweet out to MakerBot that we are live right now, and that means that MakerBot actually working down over. Never mind, it just finished. But that you can tweet out to MakerBot and let them know that, hey, Moda is showing this off. Another thing I wanted to mention is that Whipple Hill, it's a community-driven website and all that sort of thing. They actually, you want to give it up to them, because the truth is they actually sponsored tonight, and let's just give it up for them real quick. Yeah. So they've done such a great job, helping us out to produce an amazing event. And not only that, it's people who actually host our website as well. And we are so stoked that they actually helped us put on this event tonight, which has been amazing. Dan, when you were walking through tonight, was there anything that kind of stuck out to you about the exhibit tonight?
You mean the Design for Change exhibit?
Yeah.
Because the whole place was like, oh, nice.
I mean, seriously.
It's fantastic. And seriously, I saw the soccer ball, the socket, that just, see, everybody's going, kinetic energy inside of a soccer ball, and you attach a lamp, and it was super cool. That was a really bad description of it. But a soccer ball with a device inside that captures kinetic energy after you play with it. And then it has a lamp fixture that you attach to the top of it, so it becomes an LED lamp. Super cool. The best part of the write-up, though, was the admission that it didn't work right. Like, it fell apart easy. It wasn't good. And they've gone back, and it's in production now to release a better 2.0 this fall. And that was, one, it was a really cool, inspiring idea of, wow, that's a really cool concept that I can imagine one of my kids coming up with. I teach high school English, and I could actually see one of my kids going, oh, I want to make one of those. But the part that I liked the most was in the exhibit, owning the fail-up experience. And that's part of what makes design thinking different from almost every problem-solving technique you run into. And that's that's something that's to turn to my students and turn to my colleagues and say, look, you can screw up. It's okay. You can screw up big. It's okay. It's all part of the learning. It's all part of moving to something greater. So.
I also want to give a quick shout out to Katie. Katie Spence is also, what is your role here, Katie? The exhibition manager, which I'm very stoked. Yes, Lauren?
Katie curated this exhibition.
She did. She curated the design. Amazing. I had an amazing opportunity with me and Mariana DePetris, one of our art teachers this year, and to partner with MODA to put on this incredible exhibit that I hope you users check out tomorrow down at the bottom of the grand staircase. It's a history of design thinking. 2 of the student volunteers that you see walking around actually built the video elements to that exhibit. I had nothing to do with it. They came up with the ideas, we implemented it and put it out there, and MODA graciously invited us into this endeavor, and Katie was instrumental to this. It's amazing that it is absolutely amazing that a museum in downtown Atlanta would reach out to a school and say, look, we love what you're doing, we hope you love what we're doing, and on top of that, we'd love to partner with you. And we need to see more of that. We need to see more of students making real-world change and impact in their cities, in their communities. So with that being said, we want to bring up a couple more mods to dive a little bit deeper into social impact here. So we're going to invite, we've got Stephanie Serta. Come on up, Stephanie, from Austin, Texas. What up? We've got Amanda Crusoe. Come on. Oh, that's right. Nope. Sometimes I'm horrible with last names. I'll tell you. Okay.
You're not so great with first names.
You know. And then we also got Ellen. Come on, Ellen. Come on, from Cali.
Not mine.
So we've got Texas, South Carolina, Cali. We've got East Coast, West Coast, rocking up here, and the Midwest. So I'm really pumped about this. Dan, you want to say anything from down?
No, go.
All right. So if you guys want to introduce yourself, that would be great. There is a mic.
Getting on the mic.
Right there. Is it on?
Yes. Hello.
Awesome. Fantastic. We'll turn it over to you.
All right, I'm Stephanie Serta, and like I said, I'm from Austin, Texas. I work with a sort of like a rural district that's east of Austin, and where I am an innovative teaching strategist. So I help bring in the elements of design thinking, and I coach teachers, and I work with students.
What's up, guys? My name is Amanda Kreisman.
I'm sorry. I did not learn. I didn't use slides. I just used sight words.
My name is Amanda Kreisman. I am going to be working at Fort Mill School District in the fall, which is right below Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte people in house. My background is in English. I'm leaving a school district in Columbia, South Carolina, where I was the lead teacher of project and design-based learning. So I got to head up a design-based learning program at my high school, cross-curricular 9 through 12, and helped start a couple other at both the middle school and elementary school level. So yeah, that's pretty much fun.
I don't do well with microphones. I always say turn into the. This is my Saturday, like my 100th Saturday Night Live reference, the Bill Murray Lounge Lizard. Star Wars. Okay. So I'm Ellen Deutscher, and it's funny, my title is probably the hardest thing. So I'm a 20-year public school teacher in 18 years in San Carlos, which is on the peninsula between Palo Alto and San Francisco. 3 years ago, I took a leave of absence, sort of. I created a sabbatical, serendipitously fell upon the D school at Stanford, fell down that rabbit hole, and just spent like 2 years immersing myself in everything, design thinking, everything D school. Then went back to my school this past year. So I've been a 5th grade English history Shakespeare teacher for many, many years. Now coming back with sort of a new role, and I wanted the culture piece for me is huge. I'm in a culture that does embrace design thinking, but I'm teaching, next year I teach 3 design thinking classes actually. There's 6th grade, 7th, 8th grade leadership and design. So I'm kind of evolving into the, and I still do coaching and training with design thinking with schools and districts outside of my own district, which is kind of an interesting. So I don't really know what that title is, but so I play in design thinking with adults, kids, and all over the Bay Area.
Cool. So my question for all 3 of you is going back to this idea of design thinking for social change in our schools. And I'm wondering, as you've been listening and thinking about the ideas we talked about, like what problems either that you've run into, I should say challenges, not problems, but challenges that you've either run into in your experiences working with it, or that you could perceive, like hurdles, sticky wickets, wicked problems that you might. What?
Can you define sticky wickets?
I was going to
Right? I think that is sticky wicket lava in the room. Anyone know what? Thank you. What?
Don't back it up.
I think that's a good language.
I'll take you out to my dooryard and show you what. All right. Anyway, back on point. Seth, did you have something relevant you wanted from that?
So, I guess you barriers, right? Is that what
Barriers.
Yeah, okay. So anyhow, well, I guess it's kind of like what Ellen was talking about in terms of it. Just there are pockets of innovation going on sometimes. And so if you're working on something and your entire organization is actively, it feels like actively working against you sometimes, then it can be maybe. It can feel uncomfortable, right? And definitely, there are times where I feel like a feeling of, there's definitely a feeling of isolation, right? And so, but that's why I've got you guys. And so, when you're doing this kind of work and you're so passionate about it, there's an element of like just exhaustion, right, that you experience, and then coupled with the isolation. But then Wednesdays, seriously, are like my recharge because I can hop on, and even though I'm mostly a lurker, I just feel rejuvenated every time I go through and check out the hashtag. And then again, there's just like a support, a support network in case I do have questions, and in case there are challenges. So yeah, that's what I got.
That's awesome. Right. You find a support network amazingly on the internet.
Yeah.
Because even if you don't have, a connection right there in your building or your impact area.
Or your city.
Or your city, your
Yeah.
entire city. Because there's no design thinking in Austin.
I mean, maybe I've just not, found.
Really? Really?
Yeah. No. Sorry.
No, it surprises me because it's a town that's known for being
Right.
innovative.
So we have a lot of ed tech stuff going on, but lots of solutions out there that are looking for problems to solve. And so what we're trying to actually do now, I helped organize something called Ed Tech Austin. So we're trying to bring educators into the conversation a lot sooner. And so now we're starting to get to a point where now we're thinking about the actual design process. There's a lot of innovation happening, not exactly need finding and actual talking to users. That comes way later, and that they're finding that it's not working. So, little by little.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you're the bonfire, so that's awesome.
I think I just turned it off now. So I was gonna say, it's kind of similar, the culture, so it was interesting because, you know, I took these 2 years off and I was immersing myself with design thinking and working with schools and at the D school and then Nueva, you know, Nueva's having their design thinking institute this week too, and working with all these students where there's this great design thinking. So when I went back to my school, it was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna like these change the world solutions and we're gonna fix this problem. And you know, the reality is, for those of you who are starting out with intro to design thinking, it's good to know. So I got back there in 12 weeks, and all the students who weren't in band ended up by default in my design class for the quarter. And it's
We all have those classes.
that's how I ended up with this, and all boys too. But so these ideas, I was like, oh, we're going to solve this problem, all these world problems, and you know, some of our Twitter chat people, Lisa's out here somewhere, these projects, Lisa, I'm going to do a shout out. These amazing innovations like prosthetics, the things we talked about Vernon's doing. So I got in my classroom in that 12 weeks I had them, and we didn't start out getting to do those, you know, change the world projects. And I kind of had to reacclimate okay, so we need to start where we need to start and meeting students where they are. And so any growth, you know, I had to keep letting myself, it's okay, you know, it's okay if I only do this piece. And with each group of kids, it was so different. So my second group of students, we were able to dive into the empathy much sooner. We did a lot more empathy work. We did some redesign. As Ken said, we did some in San Carlos School District, close to where Cami is. And they interviewed, one of the biggest interviews that they got the most impact was they interviewed the custodian. We were looking at how might we make the bathrooms more delightful at the middle school. Which is so funny because if you ever get a chance to go to B school, they have the most delightful bathrooms. And I told that to my students, so like that's all they want to do now when we go on our field trip. The girls' bathroom has disco balls and a shower room. So that became the obsession. But so it was, you know, calibrating and what is empathy work and what is an innovation and what is meeting your students where they are. Look, like it might not be that you do this change the world thing. You know, my students started to realize from the custodian, they learned like the kind of things that are happening around school and the way kids take care. They started to think about things differently than they had before. So it wasn't, I didn't get to jump in and change the world like in big ways, but just getting them even to open their eyes to things that they hadn't opened their eyes to before. When they would start asking, can we work on this once the quarter's over? You're like, gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to let you do that. You know, but
do you need more than that? Do you need more than that?
Like, well, it's funny because they watched, anyone hasn't watched Ralph King's Extreme by Design about the Design for Extreme Affordability class. They saw graduate students like, wow, they keep doing the project once school's over. And that's okay. So that was just kind of as encouragement. If you don't, as Steph, if you don't have that culture around you, your kids are still, it's kind of reminding yourself, and I have to remind myself, the steps they're making where they are and still moving them forward in the right direction.
Oh, that's fantastic. Cool. Amanda, did you want to share one in there?
I had to redeem myself. Is it Kreisman? Yes!
I only got half credit for second try, so I'll be too bummed. I do get half credit for second try. You can be full credit.
Oh, standards based. Standards based. Retry. I think he's meeting the standard. Wow. Wow.
I think that I was really fortunate to, the program that I run is design-based and it's cross-curricular, and so the setting that I would have students in is 4 hours a day, English, social studies, science, and design, which is my class, and we would get to do design challenges in the context of those content areas. And so we were very fortunate. We had, for the most part, you know, administrators who were willing to take a risk on us. We had people that were willing to give us their children and say, you know what, if you think that you can do all these things that you say and you can give them their content, they can still pass their state tests, you know, go for it. And so I think that I was, in the area of the state that I was in, I was kind of in isolation in what I was doing, definitely not in the mindset, you know, I can echo what these ladies said, have said about, you know, developing a network of people, regardless of location, that can support the efforts that you're working on. So I wasn't alone in my efforts, but I think that one of the things that I struggled with was being alone in my mindset in my district. My job was to run this program and teach these students and to do design-based learning. And while I had the full support of my administrative team and while I had the full support of my school, They'd be the first one to put something in the newspaper. They'd be the first one to, give us a pat on the back when we did something well. They really didn't buy in to what we were doing. And it got to the point where my students began to pick up on that. And my students would do incredible things. My students have produced documentaries for an in-house film festival. They have built and designed wheelchair ramps for students at our school and community. They have built and created furniture and other school items out of repurposed materials. All of these things that are, by and large, amazing for my students. A lot of students that I have are students that a lot of other teachers might have dismissed. I teach in a very low numeric 90% free reduced lunch, mostly African American, very low class. And so we have students do things that they never thought would have been possible, and that we are literally backflipping over for them and having them feel like they are champions in the things that they do, and yet they can't get a second look from their other teachers who are questioning, well, that's cool, but what did you learn and what was your test on? Did you take a test this semester? Having students who would get into fights with teachers about the validity of design thinking, my colleagues in my school, and get written up for, blatant disrespect towards a colleague who was being blatantly disrespectful towards them. And so I think that the problems that we faced were, we had an amazing culture in my classroom. We had an amazing culture in my program. We had administrators who were willing to give us the money that we needed and give us the space and the time. But in terms of the faculty buying in, or at least being supportive of what we did, that is what we lacked. And it got to the point where my students could do everything else, but they were missing that element of familial support throughout their school and the recognition of what they're doing is good and it's worthwhile and it will take them places. It goes so far.
Which is challenging. I mean, that's a really difficult thing to, locus of control, right? Like, how much can we control? We can only control what we do. We can't control the thoughts of others.
Having to have a conversation with a 15-year-old about why his teacher was wrong and telling him that what he does in everyday class is stupid is a really humbling moment. About having to talk to the teacher, or having to talk to the student as an adult and help them, to apologize for a colleague. It was one of those things that we found hard.
And at the same time, you guys end up still doing it. And that's the difference between what happens with a lot of folks. They run into that, and they stop doing it, and they go, oh, I'm not getting the support, I'm not getting the love from the people around me, and so I'm gonna shutter the doors, and we're gonna go back to doing something, or I'm gonna get really, really quiet about it. And I know you. And that's something super, super cool. Thank you, all three of you, for just amazing stories. All right, what's up?
I've got to give a shout out.
You got to give another shout out?
I do!
Who?
Joseph! So this whole show, and again, just to remind people what this is about, we have this Twitter chat at 9 p.m. Eastern. Joseph had this crazy idea. He's from Texas. He's watching right now. You probably see him on the stream. He actually just tweeted a video of us sticky widget.
Sticky widget!
Oh my
God. Sticky widget!
What are you wicked?
There's no change.
No.
Anyways, so with that being said, Joseph was the guy who kind of started this idea, like, what would it look like at 9 p.m. doing this chat? And then at 10 p.m. actually bringing on some of these mods and actually starting this video podcast. And I want to give also a shout out to Ellen for hooking us up for our first show that we could never live up to. Bringing David Kelly onto our show, like, oh, here's the first DTK 12 Check show with David Kelly.
Very impressed with your background. I have to, he still talks about that.
What about my background? Star Wars?
It's what was behind you. Like, it was like, they didn't even try to straighten out.
So people haven't seen this show. The reference point they're making, inside jokes are fun. So when we record the show, I'm sitting at my desktop, which is in my geek lair, which is the other word for my office. But I am a super uber nerd, and I'm proud of it. I have a massive comic book collection and old toys from my childhood and new. And I have lots of clothes around and other things, and I don't clean up before the show because the internet. Who's gonna notice? So every show, except for the really bad one that was very shaky, and then for David Kelly, I didn't even clean up. That he's about messy problems. I'm a messy person. So that's what happened.
All right.
Let's get our last.
We're gonna do our last panel here. Also,
and then we're gonna have Q&A.
We're gonna have Q&A, and Dan and I will help moderate that when it comes to the questions and the mods. We would just say, hey, come on up if you have a good answer to that question, because we do want you on video over here. So just be thinking, audience, if you have questions, maybe things that have stirred with you and infused and that sort of thing. If you have questions for us, we would love to answer them. So the next panel we've got Thomas Riddle. Come on up. Woo! So we've got Louisa Palmieri.
Pittsburgh.
And then we've got Chris Andres from here at the ACL. Come on up here. I'm very excited to see all of these guys. We've all seen each other before, which is really fun. I met all these guys on Twitter. So if you guys want to just introduce yourself real quick, name, where you work, what you do.
Thomas Riddle, Greenville, South Carolina. I'm the assistant headmaster for K-12 school and the upper school administrator for Shannon Forest Christian School. Oh, and adjunct professor of education at Vernon University. Gotta say, go Paladins!
Hey everyone, Lisa April Palmieri here. I'm from the Ellis School in Pittsburgh, PA. We're an all-girls school. I'm the director of our Learning Innovation Institute there, and loving DTK12 chat.
I'm Chris Andres. I'm a third grade teacher here in Atlanta at Mount Vernon Presbyterian School. What were we supposed to do? It was a great day.
You still have 10 minutes left on the mic.
That's right. It was a great day for you. Got a lot done. Met a lot of really great folks. So.
Did you get your sandwich?
I did.
Did you get it?
20 minutes later, the sandwich didn't arrive.
But it was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was fantastic.
It was worth the wait. It was awesome.
The Argentinian.
So, question for you. I'm gonna look at the same question that you folks at Trade threw at me, which is in looking around this amazing exhibit, because I don't think we talked about Moda tonight. I don't mean that sarcastic. I mean, this place is amazing, and that exhibit is unbelievable. And I'm snapping pictures like crazy for my fall, and I'm sending them all off to my co-teacher and be like, we're doing this, we're doing this, or make one of these, we're gonna do that. We need a baby. Prototype with the baby. Why not? We'll find out if it really works. What did you see in the exhibit tonight, or that you've seen before, perhaps, that got you inspired, that got you thinking, ooh, we could do something like that, or I want to bring that back to my impact area?
One thing that I saw right away coming in was an exhibit, was a piece back there by Rural Studio. Big shout out to Rural Studio. Graduate School of Architecture at Auburn University, where they built a $20,000 house. And I've been to their little place. I mean, it's a tiny town out in the middle of nowhere where this project is, and have seen the impact. The magic number, $20,000, was the amount of money allowed by the government to support these homes. But then you could buy a house for $20,000, and so they took it upon themselves to take that on as their challenge. And they made some amazing, amazing stuff using their skills in architecture to do that. To see what that exhibit here is actually pretty cool, because I took some students several years ago out there, so I'm glad that they're getting recognition here at Moda, because this is an awesome, awesome, awesome spot.
Cool. So I can't remember what studio worked on it, but the soccer ball that was back there, the generated energy, I think that's super cool. We are teaching a global leadership class, and one of our focuses is about social entrepreneurship. So it's definitely snapping some photos, because it's like, you know, what can we think about that our students can work on for folks across the world, similar to that soccer ball idea. So I thought that was a pretty cool one. That, you know, it was about the sport, but also about the light, so they can read it, the energy, just really awesome.
After teaching them, I'm talking a lot about the Embrace Infant Warmer. It was really cool to finally pick one up, you know, and play with it and hold it, and so that was really, really neat. And to kind of make that connection to one of those really first impactful projects to come out of the youth school. Something too that was really impactful was seeing the model for transitional housing in the back. So this past January, our middle school students spent 2 weeks doing an intensive deep dive in design challenge for designing for extreme poverty. And so what we examined international poverty, national poverty, and local poverty. And kids decided to go into certain areas related to poverty to explore and to design for. And so we have a homeless camp in Greenville called Tent City. And so that really resonated with a lot of our students. And so out of this project, this two-week project, our middle school kids came up with the idea of designing a pallet house. And so we'll be, this fall as we return, we'll be finally constructing a 250 square foot house made out of reclaimed pallets. And this is the middle school kids doing this. And what they're doing is they want to do it as a model for transitional housing for the people of Greenville. And so seeing that project was like, wow, okay, so this is another type. Because the kids, we were putting it on a basketball court, and it's kind of easy access for people to come in and look at. And so the kids were like, well, can we build another house after this one? And so absolutely. So that's the one I'll pick back up, snapping pictures. And so that was really cool.
Nice. Nice. So one of the questions we talked a lot about on the chat, and we haven't talked about it in our, we've been so busy focused on actually solving problems in 201 and getting familiar with the process in 101 here at Q14, is about the value some folks put on different phases of design thinking. You know, and we've been focusing on deep, so I'm going to ask you related to that. So discover, empathy, experiment, produce. When you're thinking about designing for social change in a school, which of those phases do you think either? I'll let you pick. I like that. Choices, differentiated questioning. You can either go with which one do you think is the most exciting to work with kids that you think is going to like fire them up, or also which one do you think is the most challenging to finally see through or work with?
Okay, so I think the one that gets me most excited, and I think the one that holds the most promise for our schools is empathy. And I'm saying, you, so if you can get middle school kids becoming empathetic to not only their classmates, all right, so it starts there, but thinking outside themselves and thinking about others in the community or the larger community in the world, that's pretty powerful. And I've seen the beginnings of that with our students. Getting kids to understand that it's not about me; it's about serving others. You know, it's decrease myself and make more of others. And so I think that at the heart of design thinking it's like we talked about today. Mary talked about it. It's about people. It's about serving others and meeting the needs of others before I meet the needs of myself.
Right. Empathy fuel. That's what I like to say. And I've heard other people say I can't take credit for it. I just love it.
Yeah, that's what we did.
Right.
So, of course, I love them all, but I think that, again, I'm going to say empathy is definitely #1. And also, I really do love taking the time for the making and the prototyping. So, we did this really awesome school-wide project this year for International Day of the Girl. And we had an upper school class, or gender empowered class, use design thinking methods to think about what are some of the challenges that girls across the world have related to access to education. They landed upon these 6 questions, and then we had students from grades 5 to 8, or 5 to 12, partnering together with sister classes to gain empathy from each other about these 6 essential questions. Then we had our lower school girls meet and work on that together in an age-appropriate way. And the really cool, awesome part is this cross-collaboratory group of teachers from across the school came together, and we actually built an art exhibit called In Her Shoes, where the girls donated or brought in shoes, donated them to local women's shelters, and created an art exhibit on our greenway. And each shoe had an idea in it that a girl had to solve this education access problem. And so that making that art exhibit really made it real for our community, but that empathy, it wouldn't have happened without that.
Yeah, and what I love about that is that even though they didn't actually enact any one of those ideas, the fact that they put it out there could be the nugget that inspires someone else. And I think we forget that sometimes when we go right to, well, produce has to be seeing the actual thing through. The idea of actually just starting and putting an idea out there and publishing and showing your work to borrow from Austin Cleon. It's that idea and that's a really inspiring little story.
I want to say empathy also because everybody else did.
So you can go wherever you want.
But really, one of the most important place I love the most is the discovery phase. To poorly paraphrase from Bo Adams, who shared with me that he got it from Grant somewhere, that when the questions are generated by the students, the answers belong to them. He who generates the questions owns the answers. And so in that discovery phase, when you're looking, when you're just out, you're just out exploring, you're just experiencing, gathering experiences, you wonder. And those wondering questions are what drive the whole design, I think, in my opinion. So when working with third graders, their world is so small and limited in experiences. So I do as much as I can to bring those experiences to them, and then have them ask me questions why we can't have jetpacks on our way to school to avoid all the traffic. You know, and what a great question. And why not? Really, like why not?
FAA.
Well,
Three letters, kids.
It happened in Back to the Future, and I'm pretty sure there's a way. Because I saw it on TV.
It was on TV.
Yes.
Before there was the internet.
Yes, and.
Yes, and absolutely.
Yes,
Yes, and. We had some great yes, and. We had a how might we, a yes, and board in my classroom, and yes, and all kinds of crazy. At one point, and I showed this in some of my parent conferences because I stayed on the board, that there were some tanks and flamethrowers and things like that. We do not in any way appreciate, promote use of tanks in schools. The flamethrowers, but why not? That's where they wanted to go.
Yes,
and
we
I
have
had
a
to
tank
go.
in.
Right, absolutely. To
We
discover.
deliver groceries to the homeless. So it sounds good.
It'll get there faster if you want to.
It will. It will. So awesome. Hey, thank you, three. Good. Before the Q&A, I've got two quick shout outs. One, Thomas Riddle is a mastermind behind one of the greatest Twitter handles in the world, at Star Wars in the Classroom. It's at Star Wars in Class. At Star Wars in Class. And it's a community of us Star Wars nerds who love Star Wars but use it in our teaching and get involved in it because there are some great ideas, for one. Two, hilarious. Really good memes. But also just some really passionate people, and I mean, yes, I'm a Star Wars nerd, I'm a lot of types of nerd, but the other thing that's cool about it is I share it with my kids and I talk about, if you're passionate about something, you can take any of your passions and turn it into something awesome that has to do with learning or changing or making a difference or doing something that actually matters in this world. It doesn't matter what it is. I love Star Wars, and that gives me an in to talk to the kids who maybe don't get along with anybody else, because we're all a bunch of Star Wars nerds. But really, it's an inspiring community. It's super cool. So follow him and follow the tweets and don't lurk. Jump in there. Call Chewbacca a cookie. It's a cookie. It's all right. We'll still love you anyway. So that was one. And the second was,
Must want a hairy cookie.
and that's terrible. And the second thing is MakerBot. Since you shout out to MakerBot earlier, right? Because of MakerBot and because they partnered with Autodesk, I was able to get, and with Donors Choose, those three organizations, I was able to get a 3D printer for my classroom for $100.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting like free sponsorship from being on here, but they did support. Obviously they connected with Motinger, and I watched the Prep 2s run, and I'm an English teacher, and I had one of those running all the second semester with all kinds of crazy stuff we were trying to build and make, and lots of fail-ups. So thanks to them for being cool and having those types of programs available out there for educators. So be on the lookout, because stuff like that happens. You just have to be watching for it. And come from rural areas with high poverty. You got those two things going for you, you might get one. Q&A time.
Yeah.
All right, you want to take the mic?
All right, so I know that this week, and we've got about 10 more minutes left on the chat. We want a hard stop at 8 o'clock. This is normally what we do.
No, it's not. What we normally do is run like 20 minutes late. Let's be honest. We try to stop.
It's it's an after-hours chat after that. Anyway, so with that being said, I wanted to just open up the crowd. Like, Do you guys have questions that have stemmed from the day that we, in these amazing DTK12 chat mods, can, maybe give some insight and that sort of thing? Amanda's going to be hanging out and
I'll bring in Mike.
bringing the mic. Right on. Yeah, we got one back here.
The floodgates are about to open.
All right, so what's the question?
Hey there, I'm Levin from Dayton, Ohio, and I'm a college counselor teacher. Dayton's a real city. And one of the questions that I have, being in college admissions, college preparatory independent school where highly selective college admissions are incredibly attractive to our students and our parents, can we consider the denial process that a lot of students experience at those highly selective schools, can that be a fail-up process?
Oh, absolutely.
I think a lot of times you fail up, you think about like, you try something, oh, it doesn't work out, you do something else, right? The denial can be an incredibly traumatic experience for those students and their parents, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we can articulate that as part of that fail-up process.
Man, that's a good question. So I just want to repeat the question. Is there a mod out there who's kind of got something, got a nut there? I see your hand, raise your hand, Jen, can you come on up here? So the question was about the denial process and within college admissions, and how can we look at that as with a fail-up mindset? So Jen, if you want to take the middle chair, that'd be awesome.
Oh,
that'd be great.
Just got on that chair.
So Jen, you got a little nut here. Bring it up.
A long way up in slippery dress and a slippery chair. Okay.
Go for it.
So I wanted to mention there's a group called the Helsinki Design Lab, which isn't currently in operation, but they were funded out of an innovation fund in Finland for since the Seashore Fund was started in the 70s, and then the Helsinki Design Lab ran for 6 years or something. But they ran an education studio, and they have all of their materials online. But they have 50 dropouts in all of Helsinki every year, only 50. But they thought that they would design for dropouts to try and understand them as lead users of the education system, and to try and understand how, if the system isn't working for them, then what can the system do, and not really think of them as failures of the system, but think of the system as failures for them. And so they have all of their collateral online, and they have a really great, awesome studio kit that they've produced. And they sort of worked with educators of a different variety, I think, for about 5 days. And so they did everything from go out and do observations on playgrounds to interviews and that kind of stuff. But it was really, really unique to look at the dropouts as lead users as opposed to I don't know, something else.
Cool.
Next, one thing I was just going to say is I teach AP Lit is one of my core classes that I teach at the high school, and so I tend to get select kids who are going to apply to select schools, and this year especially because of my work with design thinking, I've been hyper tuned to empathy, and before I used to just really simply be come, you're gonna get it somewhere. Come on. And then it did happen to a kid. It did happen to one of our valedictorians. Got rejected from all of her schools, 14 schools. No one knew why. She didn't know why. We couldn't, this was a few years ago, and we just couldn't wrap our heads around it. It was stunning. We all freaked out. And what she didn't know was a few years before her, not a valedictorian, but one of our best and brightest also got rejected from 14 schools. And those two were almost the same. And I don't know if they did it, but the first thing I said was, you need to call us for her. And I know she'll talk to you. And in the space, and what happened is this, the community, sometimes this stuff is kept secret. And while we didn't broadcast it, a lot of teachers that were invested in her found out about it really quickly. And we all talked to her, and we kind of gathered around her, and just created a supportive environment where we said, you know what, you're an amazing kid. I don't know what's going on, but whatever we can do to help you get wherever you need to go so that you can feel successful about the situation, we'll do it. And just having that, and rather than being oh, I'm so sorry. It's okay. Instead of that, it was what can we do? And what actions, what are actionable steps? And I still say to my kids, remember, they need you. They may be selective, but you're amazing. And you are going to do amazing things no matter where you go. And while it doesn't soften the blow of rejection, like leading into it, I said, you're all stressed out about application. I go, you know what? You're gonna do amazing things because you're a brilliant, talented individual. And if they're not smart enough to see that, go somewhere that does, and then shape it, and then later on you're gonna be like, look where I went, and you could have had this. That was like a date. So that's my piece of advice.
I got a question for Grant.
I was going to comment this because we're also worried about college. Those of you, if you haven't read Malcolm Gladwell's book, David Why, we're educators. We should be educating our parents as well as our students. And this is a false question. It's a false question. It's a false dichotomy. When a student fails to get into a particular college, it feels terrible. We have not done a good enough job educating our families that there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, they may very well have put their eggs into that basket under very false pretense of what success means in college. I would urge people to read that book. When I read it and I saw his talk and did that on Google, I said, especially in independent schools, there's so much on college prep, we should be showing that every one of our parents, 8th through 12th grade, every year, so they get about what the real value of the college educations are.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Grant. Absolutely. Do we have time for one more question? One more question.
Hi.
You have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. It's a two-part question. Feel free to answer one part or both parts, or I'm John from Alabama, and my question is: how do you get students? First of all, it builds off of this. How do you get any tips or strategies for getting students to buy into the fail mentality? Because a lot of those are in schools where students are scared to fail because our systems teach them that you don't want to get a low grade. And second of all, what are strategies for getting parents on board with this as well? What do the schools have embraced this? How do you teach or educate parents about the design thinking process? So, take it away.
Me. Okay. I'm going to hit on the first part of your question. I told you guys that I run a design thinking program, and some of the students are there by choice, and some of them are there because their parents put them there, and some of them are there because I put them there, and they had no idea they were there until the first day of class. And so some were super reluctant about this idea of design thinking, and we spend the first 6 weeks of school breaking our students, literally, like breaking them into pieces. Don't ask questions that you don't want to know the answer to.
That's literal.
Don't ask questions that you don't want to know the answer to. We said we break their hand, that's why I don't think break me. We don't really break them, but sometimes it happens. But we break them in the sense that we have to break, for us, 10 years of training that failure is bad, and failure means punishment, and failure means that you are a person are worthless, because that's what they think. And they don't really want to tell you that, because that's awful personal, and kids, I teach high school, they don't really want to be personal with you, they don't want to be personal with anybody. And so we spend a very solid amount of time, intentionally, on purpose, creating a culture where failure is okay. And I know that people say that all the time, create a failure culture, but what does that mean? That means that you as a teacher have to model it. And sometimes that means messing with your grade book. And sometimes that means talking to your parents and saying, we won't get grades for a couple of weeks. And there goes the shock and awe, and the faces get white, and what about the grades, and what about the college admissions, and all of this. But I think that you have to be very intentional about those things, like in your classroom, with your students before they are ever going to be comfortable with it outside of the classroom. And I know that we always talk about the fact that design thinking will carry them places outside the classroom, but if it doesn't start in the classroom, then you're not going to get it anywhere. And so that idea of modeling it, showing them when you messed up, be super transparent about it. Be like, I screwed this up. If your plans for the day were an epic fail, say they were an epic fail. Set up situations where you know the students will fail, and tell them after they failed, I knew that was going to happen, and I want you to feel it and own it and know what this feeling is, because we talk a lot about that whole the idea of facing your fear. And what happens if you fail? Like, what does failure look like? If you were to stare it in the face, what does it mean for you personally? What does it mean in this situation? Talk through a worst case scenario, and then figure out, well, what would you do next? You know, if the worst were to happen, you know, if failure is the worst, and for a lot of our students, especially those that are driven, it is. If failure is the worst, then what would you do if the worst happened? And so that idea of, you know, have a plan B. You know, don't put all your eggs in that one basket. You know, I think it really starts with that idea of being intentional, creating those experiences purposefully, placing them into your instruction to allow students to fail, and then tell them that it's okay. And they'll see that it's okay, and then let them reflect on it. Give them time to marinate in that sucky feeling of, I didn't do what I thought I was going to, or this didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and then have them do it again. You know, let them know what failure feels like, and let them be semi-comfortable in that, but at the same time, don't let them stay there. Push them to get out again, you know, make them get back out of the water, make them try it again, in order to realize that failure is just one stop on the train, it's not the last stop on the train.
Since we're already over, can I just...
Yes. You don't have to fight Chris on it.
Moderators. Okay, we really do have to wrap because of Loda, so we can keep talking about it, but we do need to wrap because we gotta shut it down. Come on, people, sit on down. Sorry.
This is the passion we see every Wednesday night.
This is what we do on Wednesdays.
Okay. Anyways, with that being said, Amanda, thank you. We do need a wrap because Moda has graciously given us this opportunity to be here. Let's give it up for Moda. In closing, this is my thought. At the end of the day, when it comes to fail up, one of my favorite words is this word to encourage. And this idea comes from the Greek word paraklesis. It's an amazing word that comes out, and I think it's one of the ethos and the depth of what we need to do as teachers and educators, as parents, as people, is that we, as design thinkers, is that we get this opportunity to actually encourage people, to not just look at the face of failure and look at it as like this horrible, deep, dark place, this pit of despair, but rather that we can encourage in a moment that people can be built up and that they can move forward in life and make a difference in this world. At the end of the day, when I look at my students, and I hope this is how we look at our students, is that we're looking at them and we're saying this. We choose to fail up because the world is bigger, it's better, it's worth the dream, it's worth actually jumping in and messing up. Because here's the truth, people are better. Come on. So again, huge shout out to Moda, huge shout out to Whipple Hill, Vernon, the team, the D team, all of y'all out there on the chat. Keep chatting, hashtag DTK12 chat. We're going to drop the mic here. We out. Don't really drop.